Every morning, Sarah Davis safely guided children across the street. Stop sign, safety vest, gentle smile. Perfect elementary school, crossing guard. But when an F-16 Falcon made an emergency approach to the nearby air base, Sarah's true identity was revealed. Colonel Sarah Davis, 20 years active duty, 3,000 plus F-16 flight hours. And now, the most critical landing of her career was coming from the Crosswalk. Welcome to Old Masters. Before we begin this incredible story of contrast, military aviation expertise, and life-saving emergency, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us keep these stories alive. Hashtag Setting the Scene Nevada, small town of Fallon. Population 8,500, agricultural community, quiet desert life. Most important feature, Fallon Naval Air Station, 10 miles southeast. F-16 and F-18 training missions were constant background noise. Fallon Elementary School on Main Street. 450 students, grades K-6. Typical small town school. Morning drop-off 7:30 to 8 o'clock a.m. Busy traffic, parent cars, school buses. Sarah Davis, 56 years old, had been working as a school crossing guard for 4 years. Orange safety vest, stop sign, whistle. Every morning at 7:15 a.m. she took position, safely guiding children across the street until 8:15 a.m. Students love her as Ms. Sarah, always patient, never rush the children, encouraging words. Good morning, sweetie. Have a great day at school. Hold my hand. We'll cross together. Parents respected her professional approach. Reliable regardless of weather conditions, safety-focused, genuinely caring. Perfect crossing guard. But nobody knew Sarah's real background. She'd been an Air Force pilot for 20 years. F-16 Fighting Falcon Specialist. Combat missions, training operations, test pilot program. 3,000 plus flight hours. Achieved colonel rank. Exemplary service record. 4 years ago, she'd taken early retirement. PTSD from combat missions. Family considerations. Desire for civilian life. She left the Air Force and entered a search for quiet community life. The crossing guard job was perfect. Community service, children interaction, simple routine. Her leadership skills had transferred, but she never mentioned her military background. Or hadn't until now. Hashtag school community and environment. Sarah Davis, 56 years old, retired Air Force colonel and F-16 pilot, crossing guard for 4 years, professional, protective, natural connection with children, single, no children of her own, military family background. Principal Jennifer Walsh, 42 years old, school principal, respectful of Sarah but doesn't know her past, appreciates her dedication to student safety. Officer Mike Torres, 35 years old, local police, school resource officer, professional relationship with Sarah, doesn't suspect military background. Daily interactions, Emma Chun, 7 years old, 2nd grade, every morning. Hi, Ms. Sarah. Tommy Rodriguez, 8 years old, 3rd grade, always wants extra attention. Lisa Martinez, 34, working mom, grateful for Sarah's care. Sarah unconsciously used military discipline. Precise timing, situational awareness, emergency preparedness. The community appreciated her thoroughness, but didn't know the underlying training. Air base aircraft overhead were daily routine. Sarah automatically identified them. F-16s, F-A-18s, T-6 trainers. Mental habit from 20 years of aviation. You sure know a lot about planes. Officer Torres would occasionally say. Sarah would smile. Just grew up around here. You hear them all the time. Truth. Professional pilot recognition never goes away. Hashtag normal morning routine. That Tuesday morning at 7:15 a.m., the normal routine began. Sarah took position at the crosswalk. Orange vest, stop sign radio. Weather clear, light traffic. Typical morning. 7:30 a.m. School buses arriving, parent drop-offs increasing. Sarah was doing systematic traffic control. Emmett got out of the family car. Miss Sarah, guess what? I lost my tooth. That's wonderful, sweetie. The tooth fairy will visit tonight. Sarah safely guided Emma across. Gentle but alert, constantly scanning traffic patterns. 7:45 a.m. Peak traffic time. Multiple vehicles. Children's excitement, coordination required. Sarah managed with military precision. Hand signal for drivers, voice commands for children, situational awareness maintenance, emergency protocol readiness. Officer Torres observed from his patrol car. Sarah's efficiency was impressive. Natural leadership, crisis anticipation, perfect safety record. You run this crosswalk like a military operation, Torres commented. Safety first, Sarah replied. Kids depend on us. Deeper truth. Military training was automatic application. 8 a.m. Traffic decreasing, handling late arrivals. Sarah was near routine completion until the airbase emergency siren was heard. Hashtag F-16 emergency begins 8:07 a.m. distant siren. Then louder. Air base emergency alarm. Sarah automatically looked skyward. Training reflex. 20 years of listening to that alarm. Principal Walsh emerged from school. What's that siren? Air base emergency, Sarah replied, her mind immediately shifting gears. Radio chatter was audible from Officer Torres' patrol car. Emergency frequency. Mayday, Mayday. Falcon 201, hydraulic failure. Controls unresponsive. Pilot unable to eject. Require immediate assistance. Sarah's heart rate spiked. F-16 in distress. Hydraulic failure meant limited control authority. Pilot trapped meant ejection system malfunction. Critical emergency. Sarah unconsciously began mental assessment. Aircraft type, F-16C. Emergency nature. Hydraulic failure. Flight control problems, pilot status. Unable to eject. Manual landing required. Location. Approaching Fallon Aerospace professional analysis was automatic after 20 years. Officer Torres approached. Sarah, we need to clear the area. Emergency aircraft inbound. What kind of aircraft? F-16 fighter jet. Pilot in trouble. Sarah paused. Her exact expertise. Hashtag emergency communication, air-based radio communication intensified. Falcon 201. This is Fallon Tower. State your condition. Tower, Falcon 201. Complete hydraulic failure. Manual reversion only. Controls extremely limited. Unable to eject. Sarah recognized the pilot's voice. Young, scared, fighting a controlled crash. Tower, nearest qualified F-16 instructor pilot. Negative, Falcon 201. All IP pilots deployed on exercise. Maintenance crew only on base. No qualified assistance available. Sarah faced a decision moment. Reveal expertise or stay silent. 127 innocent lives at McDonald's. 12 hostages in office building. Now one fighter pilot trapped in a $50 million aircraft. Potential civilian casualty risk. Moral imperative was clear. Sarah approached Officer Torres. Mike, I need to use your radio. Why? I can help that pilot. Sarah, this is a military emergency. Civilians can't. Mike, I'm a retired Air Force colonel. F-16 pilot. 20 years active duty. Torres' expression showed shock, disbelief, recognition. You're a military pilot? Was. But F-16 emergency procedures never change. Hashtag military expertise activation. Sarah took Torres' radio and switched to air-base emergency frequency. Fallon Tower. This is Colonel Sarah Davis, retired F-16 pilot. Available for emergency assistance. Pause. Then a surprised voice. Colonel Davis? Please authenticate rank and experience. Colonel, USAF, 20 years active duty. F-16C qualified, 3000 plus flight hours. Serial number, squadron. Roger, Colonel. Standby authentication. 2 minutes of verification. Meanwhile, Sarah made mental preparations. F-16 hydraulic failure emergency checklist. Manual reversion procedures. Approach profile modifications. Landing configuration changes. Everything was crystal clear despite 4 years of retirement. Colonel Davis. Authentication confirmed. We have a young pilot. First tour, limited experience. Are you available for immediate assistance? Affirmative, Tower. Stand by for instructions. Sarah looked around. Elementary school crosswalk. Children watching community gathering. From crossing guard to F-16 instructor in 10 minutes. Hashtag pilot guidance emergency Falcon 201. This is Colonel Davis. I'm going to talk you through this emergency. First, calm down, focus on procedures. Colonel, where are you? Ground location. Remote assistance. What's your name, pilot? Lieutenant Johnson, ma'am. First tour, 6-month experience. Sarah made a mental assessment. Inexperienced pilot, high stress, complex emergency. Textbook training scenario. Lieutenant Johnson, you can do this. F-16 manual reversion procedures exist exactly for the situation. Trust your training. Ma'am, controls barely responding. Aircraft wants to roll left. Copy. Trim tab adjustment required. Find a manual trim switch, center console. Sarah visualized F-16C cockpit layout. Every switch position, emergency configuration. From the elementary school crosswalk, Colonel Sarah Davis was flying a fighter jet. Meanwhile, a crowd was gathering. Students, parents, teachers watching the crossing guard give military commands. Lieutenant, airspeed and altitude, 250 knots, 8,000 feet. Reduce to 200 knots, throttle back slowly. Don't exceed 15 degrees bank angle. Reducing speed. 200 knots. Outstanding. Now landing configuration. Gear extension will be challenging. Hashtag community realization Principal Walsh approached. Sarah, what's happening? Military emergency. I'm providing assistance. But you're a crossing guard. I'm also a retired Air Force colonel. Shock faces. Parents gathering, children fascinated. Officer Torres explaining to crowd. Miss Sarah is actually a fighter pilot. She's helping save someone. The community's perspective completely changed. The crossing guard was a military hero. Emmett approached. Miss Sarah, are you really a pilot? Yes, sweetie. Sometimes people have different jobs before. That's so cool. You fly airplanes. Sarah smiled while maintaining radio focus. Community acceptance was immediate. Back to the emergency. Lieutenant Johnson, approach phase beginning. Gear extension now. Attempting gear extension. Gear down, 3 green lights. Excellent. Now flap setting. Flaps to landing configuration. Flaps set. Beautiful work. You're doing perfectly. Hashtag critical approach. Lieutenant, final approach phase. Most critical part. Follow my instructions exactly. Roger, Colonel. Sarah needed crowd management. Everyone please step back. Give me room to concentrate. The community respectfully created distance. Emergency priority was understood. Lieutenant, altitude 2,000 feet. Reduce speed to 180 knots. Reducing to 180. Now slight right rudder. Approach runway centerline. Sarah's mental visualization was intense. 20 years of experience guiding an inexperienced pilot through a complex emergency. Air base. Emergency vehicles positioned. Foam trucks ready. Medical standby. Elementary school. Community watching crossing guard command fighter jet landing. 1,000 feet. Lieutenant. Perfect approach angle. Reduced to 160 knots. 160 knots. Outstanding job. 500 feet. Prepare for flare. Children watching, fascinated. Parents amazed. Staff incredulous. 300 feet. Begin flare. Pull back gently on the stick. Flaring. Perfect. 100 feet. Keep pulling. Keep pulling. Still pulling. 50 feet. Touchdown now. Hashtag successful landing radio crackle. Touchdown. I'm down. I'm safe. Thank you, Colonel. Cheering from the airbase. Emergency crews responding. Lieutenant Johnson, shut down the engine. Emergency crews will handle everything. You did an incredible job. Colonel Davis, you saved my life. Where are you? I want to thank you personally. Sarah looked around the elementary school. Children cheering. Parents applauding. Community amazed. I'm at work. Local community service. What kind of work? School crossing guard. Silence. Then, ma'am? It's complicated. Sarah turned off the radio. 20 years of Air Force experience had just saved a fighter pilot from an elementary school crosswalk. Incredible transformation. Hashtag community and media reaction within an hour. The story was on local news. School crossing guard saves F-16 pilot. Retired colonel working at elementary school. Hero crossing guard secret revealed. Lieutenant Johnson drove to the school personally. He found Sarah still in her safety vest. Finishing crossing guard duties. Colonel Davis? Just Sarah now. Johnson saluted. Ma'am, you saved my life. You did the flying. I just provided guidance. Why are you working as a crossing guard if you're an Air Force colonel? Because these children need protection too. Johnson couldn't understand. Fighter pilot to crossing guard? But your skills, your expertise. Skills transfer. Protection is protection. Hashtag military and community recognition. The Air Base Commander, Colonel Martinez, visited that afternoon. Colonel Davis, outstanding emergency assistance. We request your return to active consulting. Thank you, sir, but I'm committed here. Ma'am, you just saved a pilot and a $50 million aircraft from a crosswalk. And tomorrow I'll save children from traffic. Principal Walsh gained new respect. Sarah, we had no idea about your background. Different life, same service. Students were fascinated. Ms. Sarah, will you tell us airplane stories? Maybe during Safety Education Week. The community completely transformed their perspective. The crossing guard wasn't just a safety officer. She was a combat veteran protecting their children. Officer Torres, Sarah, I have to ask, why crossing guard? Because someone needs to care for kids. The military taught me protection priorities. Hashtag family and personal impact. Lieutenant Johnson's parents visited. Colonel, our son told us you saved his life. He saved himself. I just provided encouragement. Why aren't you still flying? Complex answer. PTSD, combat fatigue, civilian life choice. Because I found a different way to serve. Student Emma Chun brought a drawing. Fighter jet with crossing guard, holding stop sign. Ms. Sarah, this is you protecting us. Perfect understanding from a 7-year-old. Sarah realized military service had transferred to civilian protection. Same mission, different uniform. Local news interview. Colonel Davis, will you return to military? I never left service. I just changed my assignment. Hashtag new purpose. Understanding the Air Force offer consulting contracts, flight instructor positions. Sarah declined everything. Why? Colonel Martinez asked. Because these children need consistent protection. someone they can count on every morning. The community started Colonel Sarah Day, annual celebration of hidden heroes. "I don't need recognition," Sarah said. "I need children safely crossing the street." Lieutenant Johnson became a regular school visitor, aviation education volunteer. "The colonel taught me that service comes in many forms." Sarah started an after-school aviation club. Students learning flight principles, military values, service importance. "Leadership applies everywhere," she taught. Cockpit or crosswalk. #, final message, and conclusion 6 months later. Sarah Davis still worked as an elementary school crossing guard. The Air Force respected her choice. The community cherished their protector. She developed military-style safety training for schools. Situational awareness, emergency procedures, leadership principles. "Safety protocols are universal," she taught. Fighter jet or crosswalk, the principles are the same. The F-16 incident became an Air Force training case study. Civilian instructor pilot protocols were developed based on Sarah's guidance. Lieutenant Johnson kept in touch. "Colonel, you changed my perspective on service." "You changed mine too. Showed me service never really ends." Sarah Davis learned that retirement doesn't mean the end of duty. It means finding new ways to protect. Some people leave the military and become civilians. Others bring military values to the civilian world, protecting whatever needs protection. That morning at the elementary school, a crossing guard saved a fighter pilot. But more importantly, Sarah Davis proved that service members never truly retire. They just change their uniform. Have you ever discovered someone had an incredible military or professional background they never mentioned? Someone whose service continued in unexpected ways? Share their story in the comments. Here at Old Masters, we believe the greatest heroes often work the simplest jobs. They hold stop signs, direct traffic, and save lives when duty calls. Subscribe if you believe these stories deserve to be told. We'll see you in the next one. And remember, true service never retires. It just changes assignment.